Berto Nogueira, because Nogueira is my middle name. So I either use Berto Silva or Berto Nogueira. And I have been in the same property in South Fort Myers. This summer is going to be 26 years. And I am in an environment that it's pretty warm. There's a lake nearby my property, and there's a creek. So I have been doing a lot of experiments. I've been growing things that you can grow only in the Amazon. But today, let me ask you, how many of you guys grow annona? Okay. How many of you grow any rare annona? Which one you grow?
Miami soursop.
Miami soursop?
And Rollenia deliciosa.
Cool, from the Amazon. All right, so I have been doing a lot of experiments. I have been, I like to try things, you know, sometimes you learn by doing it. And the reason I'm sitting is I'm struggling. I just had surgery in my Achilles tendon 4 months ago, and I'm still struggling with this recovery. So Jorge, we had COVID, and I stayed home, and then I got the accident, and Jorge, come on, let's go talk about come to the club. I said, leave me alone. So finally I said, okay, I'll go. So I came. Good deal. And I grow a whole bunch of rare annonas. I grow, my favorite one is called Annona salzmanii. It is a beautiful fruit. It's native to the northeast Brazil, where I was born. And I met the late Ray Jones, and he knew I was from the northeast Brazil, and he was into growing Annona salzmanii. He said, I have a tree for you. So we traded the tree, and this tree was grafted in 2012. And I have been growing it, and the fruit is absolutely amazing. Everybody that tastes it say it's one of the best annonas. So let's go to the next. This one is Annona reticulata. The reason I like to use the botanical name is because if you go to Cuba or Miami, they call this chirimoya. So if you use the botanical name, anywhere on the planet, it's Annona reticulata. So I grow this one here. It's a yellow one from Belize that I got it from Trevor Parks, that used to be a member of this club. So I grow this one, it's from him, and I also grow a red one. That's inside. This thing is very delicious. And now it's season, I've been eating them. Oh, this is a graft. I experimented by putting this reticulata on Annona glabra. We have an Annona glabra in this area that you can use for rare grafting to graft rare trees. But not all Annona glabras are good to graft them. So the one I have is the one that came from Ray Jones from Palmasola in the Tampa area. And I also use one that Gary Zio used to use as a rootstock. And those, I have been grafting several different annonas on it, and it works. Including my Annona salzmanii is grafted on that Annona glabra. Go ahead. Yeah, that's the graft unit, so you can see. The only drawback is when you use Annona glabra as a rootstock, it tends to sucker underneath the graft. So if you could do a graft very low, so you don't have this issue, because I have to be cutting the suckers. Yeah, this is the Annona reticulata that you saw the picture. It's a yellow one. It's interesting that by grafting it on Annona glabra, you make it that small tree. It gets dwarfed. So the same thing happened when you put a Annona muricata, a soursop that I call graviola, on Annona glabra, on this one that I have, you end up with a very small tree. In Brazil, they use Annona glabra as a rootstock for Annona muricata, which is soursop, commercial. Oh, this is a very interesting experiment. This is Annona scleroderma that came from Guatemala. And I also grafted it on this Annona glabra, and it became a very small tree, and it's growing like a weed. And what I have been doing on this tree is I have tip pruning it. I have been treating it the same way you treat a mango tree, by tip pruning it. You shorten the juvenile period of that tree. So I have been doing this to this tree here. And it's very compact, very small, and growing very, very well.
I'm sorry, would you say that again? You're doing what to it?
Tipping it. Tip pruning it.
Just the tip?
Just cutting the tips.
How? Just that far
just
down?
the tip.
Just a little bit?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
By doing that, you're making a bush, and hopefully I'm shortening the juvenile period.
Okay.
Because just off the cuff, I grew a mamey sapori, and I treated it like a mango. I tip pruned it. I fruited that mamey sapori in 5 years. So you'll be surprised by tip pruning trees how they respond. They may say, "Why this guy keep hitting me, he can cutting me all the time? So how about if we start fruiting?"
Well, yeah, stress out the plant.
Exactly. So this is the Annona scleroderma, and it's the common name is called poste or kawesh. It's native to Central America, mostly Guatemala. There's a whole bunch of them. And between this fruit, which is poste kawesh, and Annona salzmanii, I'm getting very good reports that those are the best tasting Annonas that we have. And I have a few seedlings for sale in the back of the Annona salzmanii, so I can support my fruit habit. Now, this is my Annona salzmanii grafted on pond apple, and this is what we call the elephant foot. This is a dysfunction, okay? However, this tree has been grafted for 10 years, and now it stands around probably 20 feet, and I cut this tree twice already. This thing is a tropical Annona. It's huge and produces some beautiful fruit. You're going to see a picture of the fruit. So this is a dysfunction. We call it elephant foot. But so far so good, 10 years. And now, in April, that's when I get the flowers, and the fruits start getting ripe in September. And I sell those seeds on the internet, all over the planet, and it's very rare. You can buy a tree like this, a tiny tree like the ones I have, you pay like $65. But today, it's on sale for $20 each.
Today only special.
Yeah, I have some in the back.
I'll buy one.
This is the tree. It is beautiful. It is a tropical Annona, native to Brazil, northeast Brazil, anywhere from Pernambuco to Bahia, and I come like in the middle. I am like 11 degrees from the equator. In this tree, in its native habitat, it grows in brackish water. I've seen a tree growing on a river that gets the tide. It gets salt from the ocean. It's from the Restinga area in Brazil. And the reason this tree is not very popular in Brazil is because they devastated its habitat to grow coconuts and sugarcane. But this fruit is absolutely fantastic. That's my tree.
That's in the ground, not a pot.
Yeah, it is on a 45-gallon pot without the bottom. So I do that because I am in a wetland. So what I do, even though it's grafted on pond apple, on a grabber, I cut the bottom so I can get some elevation so the heart of the tree is not in water constantly.
So my property floods too, so you're saying just get a big, cut the whole bottom out?
Yes. Pick a mound, cut the bottom out, and put your tree in there. That's how I do it. This is the flower, and I have been hand pollinating those flowers. I started now, end of April, But this year, I'm going to throw some kitchen scraps underneath my tree to see if those nitty-doodlies, there is a little bug, to see if they will pollinate. So I was experiment. I was the first person to fruit this in the United States. So we are learning as we go. On its native habitat, it fruits like in 3 years, like a sugar apple, 3, maximum 5 years. But over here, nobody ever fruited from seed, so we don't know yet. My tree is grafted. That's the flower. That's the fruit. It gets this very beautiful golden color. And what it tastes like? I said that it tastes like a mixture of pineapple, apple, and banana. That's what I say. But different people have different tastes. That's what the flesh looks like. I have 3 different varieties, and 2 of them I'm growing from seed. The original one, which is this one here, grafted on pond apple, or Annona glabra, has a cream color. The pulp is cream, as you can see. But I have another one that I'm growing that I found also in its native habitat, that the flesh is white, like milk, very white. The flavor is the same, but the flesh color is different. Now, this fruit has like a shell, like a hard shell. So what it does is it falls, when it's ripe, it falls to the ground, okay? So if it's next to the river, it floats because it developed this hard shell, so it floats on the river, and that's how it propagates. So this was like a nature, they came up with this. It has a hard shell. The only drawback to this fruit, it has a lot of seeds, like a sugar apple. So it's called a beach sugar apple because it grows on the beach. It has a lot of seeds, but the shell is hard. It's very hard. When it's ripe, it just falls to the ground. So the bugs do not get into this fruit because it's a hard shell. Well, this is another Annona that I grow. In Brazil, we call it graviola. And I found this. It's a very big fruit like this. So I'm growing this variety, and it's outstanding. I also have one that I got from Dr. Steve Brady from Naples. He's a close friend of mine. So we have been also experimenting with those Annona muricatas. That's the fruit. That's in Brazil, like on a market where I come from, in a city called Aracaju, which is in the northeast of Brazil. So that's the fruit. I got this one too. That's the flesh. It's very moist, very tasty.
How is that compared to the guanabanas that are here, that we get when we're here?
You know, it's the same thing. You know, guanabana, soursop is the same thing. So I grow this one. I grow also a golden one from Australia. So some of them are a little sweeter, some of them are more sour. I like them sour myself because I do something with it. I make ice cream or I make juices, and the more acidic for me, it's better. You eat what you learn to eat. I grew up in Brazil, and that's what I learned to eat. I learned to eat a nice and sour ravioli. See, another thing that I did not hand pollinate on purpose, so it wasn't fully pollinated because this was just done by the insects. If you hand pollinate, you get a perfect fruit. That's how they do commercial. That's the leaves of this one that we're talking about. It's a beautiful leaf. It's very long, very green. See, this one here is it's a scion from this muricata we talked about that I grafted on Annona glabra. And you can see there's a lot of suckers. It sucks from the bottom, so I have to keep cutting it. But it made like a very small, like a dwarf tree. So I would recommend that if you're going to graft it on pond apple, do a very low graft. And preferably, instead of using the body tape, bag them. you bag them, you can control the humidity and the take is higher instead of just using polytape. See, those are the suckers from the Anona. So you have the graft, and below the graft you keep cutting those shoots. So you have to keep cutting it. This is the Anona montana that I'm using as a rootstock for Anona salzmania. This genetics came from the Amazon. In the Amazon, there is an outfit called INPA, which is Instituto Nacional de Pesquisa na Amazônia. So it's like the Amazon Research Center for the Brazilian government. And this Anona montana came from there, and it has been a fantastic rootstocks for rare Anonas. I've been putting Anona salzmanii on it, and you get a very smooth graft unit. You don't get any dysfunction whatsoever. And I have 2 little seedlings for sale from this genetics in the back right there. This Anona montana I used as a rootstock for, I did what we call a bark graft. I decapitated this seedling and experimented, and I put an Anona salzmanii, and they told, and this tree now is huge. It's doing very, very well. So I left it so you guys could see that this was done like a bark graft, and I bagged it also. So the key is when you do the rare Anonas, bag them instead of using the body tape. This is another experiment I did. I used the Rolina deliciosa and I put it on this Anona montana. And here what happened. Rolina deliciosa, or Anona mucosa, now the new name. Here in South Florida, it's deciduous. It loses its leaves during the winter time. And the Anona montana is pretty much evergreen. The cold that we have here does not affect the Anona montana. So what happened? This Rolina deliciosa in the wintertime died. Because one is deciduous and the other one is evergreen. So this tree, this branch died. Rolina deliciosa by itself always dies back. If you grow them, you know that if you cut them, it dies back. And this experiment did not work. So Rolina deliciosa on this Anona montana did not work on the long term. So this branch died. I kept one branch, I kept the Anona montana, and the other branch I did the Rolina deliciosa. It flowered, it was doing very well, but then when the winter time came, it died. It defoliated and it died. So do not put Rolina deliciosa on the Anona montana. I've done that experiment.
Excuse me. I did the same with the versifolia. I put it on Anona montana and it also died. Delayed incompatibility, I would call it. I guess it's what you said.
So you put Llama on Anona montana and it didn't work?
It grew nicely and then it died.
It died. Interesting.
3 grafts I put in the tree. 3 of them took, 3 of them died.
How long did they last?
About 8 months.
8 months?
It started declining and then finally died.
Interesting. So the llama that you have is like a reddish one? The red one. Thank you for letting me know because I was going to put one.
It didn't work for me. So.
What I'm doing, I have Anona glabras rootstock, and I also have Chirimoya rootstock, and I have Anona montana. So I'll be playing with those 3. And I was going to put diversifolia and a llama on the montana.
My diversifolia is on glabra.
If it's working, right?
They work fine. This is the second tree that I have. I had one back in Fort Lauderdale that was taller than this.
Good production?
Yes, a lot of stuff.
Thank you.
On the
See, we always learn from one
on
another.
glabra.
See, this is the Anona glabra that I use as a rootstock. This is the one that Gary Zil used to use, and I got it from the treehouse nursery. And that's the fruit. That's what the fruit looks like. And it's beautiful, but it tastes like soap. It's only pretty. That's what it looks like inside. So this is the one I'm using as a rootstock. The leaves are beautiful, very big leaves like this. And my understanding is that this Annona glabra has one extra chromosome or something because it works very well as a rootstock. So not all Annona glabras are good rootstocks.
I just want to note, not all Annona glabra tastes like soap. I actually went looking in a while last summer for one that tasted good and found one that kind of has a name for pipe.
Awesome. Where did you find it, Luke?
It was on the Caloosahatchee River.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's pure? Is any crosses? Or?
No, it's wild and swamps.
That's awesome.
So I'll see if I can relocate it again and maybe
Sure.
get some scions off of it.
Yeah, propagate it, man, because most of them, the ones I have tasted,
Yeah, most are bad. I mean, I could actually eat it, but it still wasn't.
so you found one, huh?
But you could actually eat it.
All right, let's follow Luke now. Yeah, those are the seeds of the Annona salzmanii. It is interesting that you keep them moist, and they germinate in like 30 days. However, once they germinate, it takes forever to grow. It goes, the ones in the have in the back are almost like a year old. They stay like this forever. Until they have feeding roots, they won't grow. But they germinate very fast. Because it's a tropical Annona, it germinates, but it doesn't grow very fast. While in llama, it takes forever, sometimes 6 months, 8 months, if you don't use any acid to germinate them. But Annona salzmanii, 30 days, maximum 60 days it germinates. All you have to do is keep them moist when you remove them from the fruit.
What's your experience in germinating squamosas? I find that if I take fresh seeds right out of the fruit, plant them, the germination rate is very low. But a year later, if I keep them in a dry spot, they almost 90% germinate.
These squamosas,
Yeah.
it's interesting that some Annonas, the embryos are not developed. When you eat the fruit, and then the seed, the embryo is not developed inside, so it needs to like stay in storage for like 6 months or more for the embryo to develop, and then they will germinate.
Okay.
A lot of Annonas are like that.
I didn't know that until
Sure.
recently.
Iyam is one of them.
Yeah, I haven't germinated the lemons. I tried to propagate in my craft.
Yeah, and some people use the acid. I don't like to use the acid because sometimes you end up with a very leggy seedling. So I prefer to do things, naturally. I don't like to use the gibberellic acid. Yeah, gibberellic acid. Oh, this is something else. This is called a sonkoya, or Annona purpurea. I had 2 huge trees. A long time ago, I was looking for Rolina deliciosa seed, so I found this guy in Central America, and he sent it to me. He said, here, it's Rolina deliciosa. It wasn't. It was sonkoya. This fruit it's huge. It looks like it has spikes on it. It is very fibrous inside. And it tastes like nothing, mixed with nothing. It sucks. So what I'm doing with this sonkoya, I'm using it to create hybrids. I have crossed sonkoya with Annona salzmanii, and one fruit survived. But I went to Portugal in the fall, and I left a teenager taking care of my fruit trees. All seeds of a hybrid between a sonkoya and an Annona salzmanii. So I'll be doing it again. The flowers, sonkoya flowers, soursop flowers, and Annona salzmanii flowers, they all look the same, and it seems like they are compatible to one another. So this I'm using only for to create a hybrid because the fruit sucks. It is really bad. And it's very fibrous. You're going to see a picture. Look. It's like, it has fibers in it. So the only way you can use this fruit is if you remove the seeds, you blend it, and put some sugar in it, because it doesn't taste like that. It's very pretty, but not good. This is the flower. Oh, by the way, I figure out how to pollinate Annona soncoia, Annona salzmanii, and Annona muricata. What I do is, the day before, like in the afternoon, I pick one flower, and I bring that flower inside the house and put it on a plate. So the next day, that flower is going to fall apart and release its pollen. So 9 o'clock in the morning, Mr. B over here goes with a little brush and pollinate them. 9 o'clock, they are very receptive. That's the female part over there, and you can see it's a little wet over there. So I figure out that by doing it. So I get one flower in the afternoon the day before, bring it inside the house, and the next day at 9 o'clock, sharp, I go. If I see any flower open in the female stage, I pollinate it. And it's pretty much 100% safe. And I figure out myself by doing it. That's this soncoia flower. That's the flower. I picked this flower in the afternoon, and I brought it inside the house. It's very, very pretty, the flower. And it smells very strong to attract the pollinators, but I don't know what the pollinator is yet. I'm still working on that. What's the purpose of picking this flower?
Yes, and bring it in.
Because the Annonas, when they first open, they are in the female stage. So when this flower first opens, it's female.
You have to freeze its development, okay.
So in the afternoon, it's female, so you don't have any pollen.
Okay.
So the pollen, it becomes male the next day. It releases the pollen, it becomes male. So that's when I collect the pollen, and I go back to the tree, and whoever I see in the next day in the female stage, I pollinate them using that pollen. So you go female and then male. That's why. Oh, this is an Artemisia that I grew from a seed. A long time ago, I got a seed from Australia. It was a pink mammoth crossed with Gaffner. And I just grew and ended up being very good fruit. So I grew this Artemisia from a seed. A cross between a pink mammoth and a Gaffner.
What was the parentage?
Pink mammoth and Gaffner, the seed.
So it's the F2 of Artemisia.
Yes, and the fruit came out fantastic. What I do is I have a Artemisia tree, and what I do is I put different grafts. I make like a cocktail tree, and I cross pollens, and I do all kinds of stuff. I'm not on the bad side. This is the Annona salzmanii that I found in Brazil, that the flesh is white, but the flavor is pretty much the same. This is a fantastic fruit. The flesh is white, and the other one, the flesh is cream. It's almost, this tree, it's almost extinct in nature because the habitat has been devastated. This is an Annona escumosa that I grew, seeds were from Brazil, very sweet. Any questions?
Yeah, the last one that you show, isn't that the sugar apple that is very popular here?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Some of the, no, it's the, yeah, it's sugar apple.
What?
The last one you showed is a sugar apple.
That's a sugar apple. See, I try to use the botanical name because in Jamaica it's a sweet sop, in different places, different names. So you guys have any other question? Yeah?
Would you say that pond apple is better to graft onto than mountain soursop because those ones died?
Here's the issue. If you have like if you are in a wetland and you have an issue with flood, I would go with pond apple. If you have an issue with cold, I would go with Anona montana. Because by grafting it on Anona montana, it increases the resistance for cold. But if it's wet, go with pond apple.
I'm fascinated by your growing style, instead of mounding or just sticking it in the dirt, soil. So you use, what kind of pot is that? Is it just a regular black?
It's just a black one. And on that Anona reticulata, I have 100 gallon. It's a huge pot. I made a mound, I cut the bottom, and I put good soil in it.
Like potting soil?
Yeah.
Or black cow?
That black cow is not good because it has a lot of salts. So I stay away from that.
Potting soil, and you do your bone meal, I think you said?
Yes, and also what I do is on outside the pot, I put like logs that are decomposing around.
Humiculture or what?
Yes.
Humiculture.
So by decomposing it, you're creating environment for the good.
So any
plants.
kind of mulch or
Exactly.
logs or trimmings, and it shades the pot too. It keeps it.
Yeah, outside.
Fascinating.
Now for the Anona salzmanii, because it comes from an area that is very sandy, I would recommend that you put like 1/3 sand, 1/3 compost, and 1/3 good potting mix. Because it comes from a place that is very sandy next to the ocean. If you use just like a pit moss or something like that, the roots may rot. So you have to have good drainage.
What about, it's off topic, but avocados, are prone to
Avocados,
drowning.
the way
So could you do the same?
the way I plant avocados, I do the same thing. I cut the bottom of the pots and put in a place that you have excellent drainage because they cannot stand water on the roots. It kills them.
Oh, yeah.
When you say sand, is it Florida sand or clay sand?
You can get that sand that you use for pools, the one that's sell in those big stores. Any nice sand. Yeah.
Like clay sand?
Yeah.
Okay.
River sand. The one you use for pool filters.
Yeah, you talked about pruning known as like a bush. I'm wondering what's the minimum overall prune height that you would recommend for anonas, or does it vary by variety?
Different anonas, because Anona salzmanii wants to be a monster. Okay, I have seen them in nature like 30 feet tall,
Okay.
but they do not mind being pruned. So if you can keep it 10 feet, I think you'd be in good shape.
Okay.
They don't mind at all being cut. I cut my tree twice already, and it keeps growing. I keep growing, and I get lots of fruits.
And then I was also wondering, have you had any success grafting onto cherimoya rootstock yet?
No, I just I have probably I want to say maybe 30 seedlings this tall. And I'll be grafting on cherimoyas. I'll be grafting on cherimoyas and on glabras and montana, the salzmanii.
So what do you use for rootstock for atemoya?
For atemoya, you can use, say, escomosa is not a good rootstock. I would use cherimoya, Anona cherimoya.
Hard to get those days.
Yeah, if you want, I have a whole bunch of them. I can sell you a whole bunch of some if you want. True cherimoyas that came from California, and they are doing very well. I didn't bring them because I didn't know if people wanted them, but I have some.
Do you know if in Australia they normally fruit the second generation Atemoya by Atemoya? I've never heard of it before. They just grow, but they never produce fruit.
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. See, in Australia, known as Formosa, they call it chirimoya. But those Atemoyas, I don't know. The Australians did a lot of research with Artemorias, but I don't know if they're growing them from seeds. I don't have an answer to that.
But how did you get the seed or the plant or the what did you get from Australia?
I got a seed, one seed.
One seed?
A friend
That's
of mine sent me
amazing.
one seed. And I nurtured this thing and I planted one seed.
Oh, you got 100% pollination.
And they got their pink mammoth from us, Rare Fruit Council International, in the early days. But we have never fruited it here. I mean, I say we haven't fruited it here. It hasn't fruited enough that we bother to craft it. It just doesn't bear worth anything.
The Australians they did a lot of research with IBUs, with Anonas. They did a lot of work, and the New Zealanders they did a lot of work with feijoas. It's like they do a lot of research, and here in the U.S. we do a lot of with mangoes. So we are doing very well with mangoes, but now the program is pretty much gone.
By the way, you probably read an article that Roger published that where I tried desperately to get abiu, which is classified as a puteria, onto egg fruit, another puteria, never got it to take, but it grafts onto caimito, a different genus, so I think it's misclassified.
See, I have probably 3 large producing abiul trees, and the way I grew them is from seeds. They are very productive, because over here we have the issue with hurricanes. So by growing them from seeds, you have them well anchored. So when we have high winds, we don't have an issue. So I have some very beautiful and productive abius in my property, 3 of them. Grow them from a seed. Because grafting is kind of tricky, and you have to most likely approach grafts. So I just grow them from seed. And if you keep them in protected during the winter time, you can fruit them in sometimes in 3.5 years, 3 years.
3.5 years from seed.
From seed. I have one variety that it went from Brazil to Australia. It's called a Z4 in Australia, and I call it number 4. I don't have an ego, so my fruit trees are number 1, number 2, and number 4. And this is a fantastic one. They grow commercially in Australia because it has no beak, which I call like a little nipple. It's like round, and it's easier because abiu is very difficult to pack because it's very tender. If you try to mail it, the fruit gets bruised up. But this one it's round, and the skin is a little thick, and it was selected by the Australians.
In what area of Brazil do you find wild abiu?
In the Amazon area, only in the Amazon area. And in South Carolina.
When do they fruit here, the abius?
Abius, they're flowering right now, so probably August. Yeah, you start having them in August. And some of them are very sweet. I think it's, in my opinion, it's better than a star apple myself, I think. I call caimito.
Some of them, as you say, are very sweet, and some are absolutely insipid.
Bland, right? I have the good ones. I have the ones that came from Australia and some that came from Hawaii, and they are fantastic. One is so sweet, way too much.
Did they grow in part shade and like an understory?
I don't know. I think that they will do better in a place that gets constant moisture and full sun, preferably. And I would recommend, if you're going to grow abiu, at least 2 trees for cross-pollinations, because some of them produce by itself, but most of them do not. So you need to have a companion tree, at least 2 of them side by side, and then you Steve Brady, I gave him a beautiful tree to him in Naples. He was growing it, and he got tons of flowers and no fruit because he had only one. I have 3 of them, and I got lots of fruits, big ones. There's a lady, Vietnamese lady that lives in Naples. She drives all the way to my place, and she buys as many as I produce. It's very popular with Asian, some folks from Asia, especially from Vietnam.
Hey, you say you're familiar with the Amazon fruits, right?
Some of them.
Are you familiar with Talicia?
Which one?
Talicia.
Alicia Solenta?
Yes.
Sure, I grew up eating that stuff. That stuff also grew on the rain. We call it Atlantic rainforest.
I have a friend that gave me one about 15 years ago. I didn't know what it was, so I just threw it out there.
It's not
And
good.
it grew. It's big now, and it fruits every year.
It's very beautiful, but it's not a good fruit.
Mine is
Long gone is a better fruit.
But you know, when you compare it to like Mamoncillo or like Spanish wine, I think it's better than that.
You think it's better?
Yeah.
Some of them are very sour, and some of them are a little sweet.
These are
So
they're
maybe,
not very big. They're about just like a quarter maybe,
yeah.
but they're very good.
Yeah, Talicia Suculenta. We call it the pitomba, where I come from, which pitomba is...
Everything is
also
pitomba
good,
over
right?
there. There's a lot of pitombas.
We call it, there is like 2 or 3.
Different, completely different stream.
It's like araticum, okay? In Brazil, any anona, if it's wild, we call it araticum, which is a Tupi-Guarani word from the native Brazilian, the indigenous people. So anything that looks like a sugar apple or Nana Salzmania is an araticum.
Okay,
It's like
so
pitomba.
pitomba is everything over there, it seems like.
Yes. Anybody else?
Yeah, how often do you tip for it?
How often?
Yes.
I would say every second growth.
Okay.
It grows once, twice, I tip it. It grows once, twice, I tip it. It's like a mango tree. Yeah. So I'm going to fruit that Kawesh soon. It's doing very, very well.
Another obvious question. Are you hand-pollinating the ABUs?
Abiu, the wind pollinates them. You don't need to hand pollinate them. Yeah.
Do you think it has, is there much shelf life? Like, is there potential to grow it commercially?
Not to ship it out, maybe local, if you find like a either Brazilian community or Vietnamese community or something like that. Because to put it in the mail is very, very tender, very fragile. I don't think it will work.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna ask you about Miami soursop. Do you know anything about Miami soursop?
I have read about it. I'm a member of several clubs, I've been everywhere. And I read that it sets by itself and it's kind of productive. So, but I don't grow it myself. I grow the ones from Brazil and I grow 2 of them from Australia, the golden one.
Okay. I planted like 5 or 6 soursops a year, 2 years ago. And during the freeze event, when we had 2 nights, I had like 29 degrees 2 nights in a row.
29?
Yeah. It got really, we're in Buckingham, and I lost all the soursops except one Miami soursop, because I only bought one Miami because they're twice the price. So I was like, I'll just experiment with this one. And then all the regular soursops died except one that was between 2 bananas. So I think the bananas like insulated it. But it made me really excited about Miami soursop because it just like flushed out growth again and it did fine. But the other ones died.
Yeah, that's the problem, sometimes we try to grow things that we like it pushy a little bit, and then all it takes is one cold night and comes and kills everything. So what I'd recommend is if you grow something that's cold sensitive, protect it, spray them, wrap the trunk, you have to put some work. Otherwise, one cold comes and the next day everything is like it was blowtorched. Very sad for people like us.
So
soursop originated with Julian Lotta at the Lotta Nursery and Homestead?
Are you asking me? I don't know.
I'm just trying to get the origin straight.
It was from Julian
The
Lana?
reason it's outstanding is because it flowers and fruits in the summer, because as you know, it usually flowers and fruits in the winter, and it's very sensitive. It'll drop all the leaves at 40 degrees. But Roger Taylor has another one that flowers and fruits in the summer. But nevertheless, the Miami soursop was propagated. It's the only thing that's been propagated in Homestead for the last 7 or 8 years at least. It's a very popular soursop.
Okay.
The one that I have came from Colombia by Lisa Boyd, quarterback. And she will sell non-grafted trees. People are interested in having soursop.
That's cool.
Chris Rollins over at the Spice Park at one time had an excellent Rollinia, and you absolutely loved it many years ago. I was wondering if you were ever introduced to get seed from any of those Rollinia, but you were very interested in it many years ago.
The only Brolinian that I still have is the one that came from Panama. It's a very, very good one.
Was it as good as the one that you found at
No, the one I have?
Yeah.
The one I have came from Panama.
I'm saying, was that one that you got from Panama as good as the one that you had from Spice Park?
No, the one I had from Fruit and Spice Price, I lost it.
Oh,
So the only one I have now is the one from Panama.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
And it's a very good one. And the hurricane, this tree, one hurricane dropped this tree, another hurricane put it upright. So that thing is still alive and kicking. Before I forget, I have one achachairu, I have one grimao jabuticaba, I have a couple mountain soursop for sale, and probably one. I have one Artocarpus lacucha, which is a jackfruit relative from India, also a little citrus.
I talked to a young lady from Trinidad who said that soursop ice cream was a big deal. And you mentioned it earlier. Is soursop one of the major ingredients, or is it just a flavoring in the ice cream?
Sure. See, in Brazil, the ice cream is a big hit, and usually the fruits are sour.
And the soursop is a big portion of it.
Yeah, it's the main ingredient. So it's milk, sugar, and pulp.
You said you were putting some of those aremoya in the pot, right? And then the bottom you're cutting out, right?
That's correct.
So what happens when the thing breaks apart, the pot, the whole?
At that time, see, it's one of those big plastic pots.
Right.
So you cut the bottom, so the roots, instead of going sideways, it goes down first.
Oh.
So it anchors itself, and I make a hole before I put the pot. I make a hole, a huge hole, and I put organic stuff before I make this mount. So basically it's like one big container, but the ground is part of it.
No, I thought the reason why you had it in a pot is because it gets wet, right?
Yes.
So how do you protect the bottom part?
You don't, but you by elevating like by a yard or so, the heart of the tree is not sitting in water. Because my land, it's wetland.
Okay.
So
it can survive even though the bottom part of the roots gets root rot, it still survives.
Exactly.
So the pot, when they break apart, what do you do?
The pot doesn't break apart.
It doesn't.
You know, this thing it's one of those very thick in big pots. It doesn't break apart that easy.
Okay.
The ananas osmania is still on a pot like that. It's no problem at all. And 80 years.
Okay.
And the pot's still good. There is no bottom.
And this is for the Atemoya, right?
No, that's the ananas osmania.
Tasmania.
Anybody else? Well, if you have any questions, and you can always get a hold of me through Jorge. I share everything that I learned. Some people, learn things and they keep it for themselves. I'm the other way around. I try different things, I learn different things, and I share. So if you need to get a hold of me, if you have any questions, just get a hold of me. And if I can be of any help.
Do you have any mango fruit that survived the freeze?
I have.
Do you have any mango fruit this year?
Yes, my trees are loaded. Remember, I'm on a microclimate. And there's a lake, and there's a creek on the back, and my piece of land. Even though it's wet, it's well protected. The only things that with this cold, some of the bananas got a little bit of burnt. That was it. But my mangoes are loaded with fruit. And I'm getting two crops. Some of the mangoes are almost ready to get ripe. And then I have second flowers. They are smaller. So I'm going to have them at different stages this year. No problem at all.
You still have the biggest yellow passion fruit on the planet?
I have been spreading that. I give it to Josh Jennison. Some of them are pretty big. Yeah, I still have it. Not the biggest on the planet, but a good sized one.
Are they yellow?
Yellow.
Yeah, I have some that are very large.
Yeah.
I mean, they got beaten by the frost, but it's coming back.
They come back.
I was curious, right?
That's it, folks. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.